The history of Roman painting is essentially a history of wall paintings on plaster. Unfortunately, the majority of the art that was created was on perishable materials. The surviving works were mostly wall paintings. Roman panel art consisted of both original creations and adaptations of renowned Hellenistic works due to Greek art being popular in Rome. These Roman panel arts were likely to be the beginning of the art of fresco. The evolution of Roman painting can be listed as 4 unique styles. The first style was an experimentation using materials to simulate marble of various colors and type on painted plaster. Artists of the late Republican period drew inspiration from early Hellenistic works to simulate masonry and utilized the Doric architectural order. As the first style declined, the frescoes shifted from simulating costly building materials to depict gods, heroes, and mortals from various contexts. The second style imitated architecture through pictorial means. This style using shading and perspective to create elaborate displays of illusionist architecture and realms of fantasy. When Emperor Augustus reigned, there was an impulse to innovate rather than recreate. This is the third style was influenced by Augustus, who favored surface ornamentals rather than illusions. Painting in this style commonly had monochrome backgrounds, elaborate architectural and vegetal details, and features partial landscapes in the center. The fourth style is a combination of the third style and the return of large-scale narratives, painting, and panoramas. This style uses textile qualities and tendrils to connect all the pieces together. These wall paintings are made up of several layers with the purpose to preserve and are painted over to create the finished product. Roman sculptures are a combination of classical Greek and Hellenistic works with a focus for realism and influences from Eastern art styles to produce the finest works in marble, stone, and bronze. As Roman sculpting developed, artists sought to create optical effects through lights and shading for greater realism. Later on, artists created more Impressionism art by using light tricks and abstract designs. Artists also began to create larger-than-life sculptures of emperors, gods, or heroes. The market for sculptures also differed between classes, as aristocrats preferred classical and idealistic sculptures, while the middle class preferred more naturalistic and emotional sculptures. In statuary and portrait sculptures, artists loved to create works dedicated to their divine figures. The idea for implementing realism was possibly the wax funeral mask of deceased family members. These wax masks had imperfections that are normally unseen in idealism. Officials' portraits were often depicted using idealism. As a result, they lacked any distinguishable facial features. As new emperors reigned, there was a fluctuation between idealism and realism sculptures. The purpose of the sculptures in Roman culture was either for decoration or displayed a political statement. However, the most common sculptures were funeral busts and tombstones. The tombstones portrayed the deceased along with their family members and possibly slaves. When burial became more common in Rome's sarcophagi, with Roman mythology carvings was used more. Although Roman sculptures were originally recreations of Greek works, Romans developed their own styles and artworks. Roman architecture used previous Greek structures as a start, then improvements were made through new techniques, materials, and creative designs. The 3 Greek styles adopted by the Romans were Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. The Corinthian style was a Roman favorite, and the Romans decided to add it to make it more decorative. Eventually, the Romans created their own styles called composite capital and Tuscan. The composite capital style mixed with Ionic order with the Achaemenid sleeves from the Corinthian. The Tuscan was a unique adaptation of the Doric except with a small capital, slender and smooth pillar, and a molded base. Romans made singular pillars while Greeks stacked drums for columns. Columns were no longer needed, but they were still built for a traditional look. Romans were inspired by previous Greek buildings and created their own massive buildings with soaring arches and endless domes. During the Augustan period, there was a spike in creating buildings with innovative, extravagant use of marble. The distinct separation of the old design traditions. Although marble is a common seen material in Roman culture, it wasn't until the Empire that the use of marble became widespread. Also, Romans were the first to use lime mortar to create concrete, which was later used in the foundation of walls, vaults, and bricks. Architects in Rome are not well known due to the credit of the structure being given to the commissioner of the work. One of Rome's famous architects is Vitruvius, known today due to his book, On Architecture, a 10-volume study of architecture. Vitruvius also escapulated the essential ethos of Roman architecture. All buildings must be executed in such a way as to account of durability, utility, and beauty.